We're going right now. That's what it is. We're doing
All right.
episode 14 right now. Sports Goofs. Hi, everybody. To start out, got Charles here. Got
Hi,
myself,
everyone.
Francisco. Yo, what's up? Yeah, the stream has started on Africa TV, if anybody is even watching on that. But we're on the big stuff: YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, on Periscope. And sports, 5 NHL games, 4 NBA games, 23 NCAA men's basketball games, and 18 NCAA women's games. And we are, let's say, 21 days out from pitchers and catchers reporting for spring training. So thank you, everybody, for tuning in on this chilly Tuesday. Well, not really chilly. It's gotten back to semi nice weather. Actually, nice weather in Florida, at least. We're hoping that our good buddy Cesar out in LA. I'm sure he has a lot to talk about as far as the NFL playoffs is concerned, and so do we. As well, let's start out since Cesar isn't here yet. We'll start out with the first game, or not the first game, really the second game of that Sunday between the New England Patriots and the Kansas City Chiefs out in freezing cold weather. Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, Robert Kraft, and either the New England Patriots are the most blessed team in football, or they're the one that made the best deal with the devil. I can't tell which. I'm hoping it's with the devil, and we'll have maybe 90 plus years of ineptitude from them after this. But man, I as that game was going on, I know that the Chiefs, in some ways, they did deserve to lose that game because they didn't really start actually getting into the game until the second half. But man, I, I, I was watching that game and I'm just like, you know what? I had already reserved myself to thinking the Patriots are just gonna win. Like it's not even a question. They're just gonna win. I don't know how they're gonna do it, but they're gonna win. Throughout the first half of the game, I'm just like, yeah, I was kind of getting disinterested. And then the Chiefs staged their comeback, and then finally we get to those final plays of the game, that phantom roughing the passer call, which pisses me off, but it's once again probably deal with the devil that the Patriots do. They somehow find a way to take advantage of whatever little tiny sliver of good chance that they get, and they do so. Obviously, kudos to them on execution because, I mean, they could have just easily blown it, but they didn't, and here we are again with New England Patriots for what, the ninth time now in the last 20
Yep.
years,
I,
for as the AFC champion, and I am sad.
yeah. I think we're all sad. I just, the Saints Rams game was a good game, right? You got into it. For me personally, I felt we're just carrying all of the other 31 fans of the NFL against the Patriots, and it started. You got concerned. You saw some stuff happening. Patrick Holmes looked nervous, and then Andy Reid started to get us our feelings. I was getting invested. I felt like I was on a quick relationship that I wanted to marry the Chiefs, and then the refs kind of came playing like that ex of yours that misses you because it's been sometimes like, oh come on baby, I got you some Super Bowls. You gotta get some more because that phantom roughing the passer call, like I get from their, you know, trained versus untrained eye, right? Everything's live. They saw Brady's helmet kind of rattle a little bit, so maybe they thought it happened. It didn't happen. Nothing happened. And then I sent to the group chat, and I
Yeah.
still have that whole beef of where was the offsides because maybe it was a stilled image. I didn't see it, but neutral zone infraction, really? I mean, you gotta have a pivot. You have to have shoulder move, and I understand. Charles, you're not professional. They don't pay you
Yeah.
to do this kind of talking. But of course, it happened on the game-stealing pick.
Yeah.
So there's a bias to it. I mean, blame the Chiefs defense for having weeks to prepare because you played once, and the only difference between now and then was Josh Gordon ain't around. So you had time to actually say, hey, let's not screw this up, and they screwed us up, and they fired Bob Sutton today. So I might comment on that a little bit. But it felt wrong because here's the thing, and you had talked about it, and I'll mention now, Brady did not look good. Brady, if that pick by Tre'Davious West got, no flagged,
Right.
3 picks, he wasn't there. It was Sony Michel, who is a beast, and we're all going to say it, and Rex Burkhead. And you should have known they were going to keep running it because Rex was fresh legs. So once they got the overtime, it's quite simple. Hit the gas on the tired-out defense. But it hurt, man. It hurt a lot because I think I'm at that point where I'll accept greatness going to the finals, like LeBron going every year. You just accept it, right?
Right.
Brady has not looked good this year. The Patriots not look good this year. I have mentioned it prior that them getting a second round leads them to a Super Bowl because they're not going to be challenged. And when they were challenged, the better team didn't win out this time. You know what happened? The lucky team won. The lucky team won. And it felt it that way because I think if they didn't get that flip of the coin, Patrick Mahomes was going to go down there and score. The kid was on fire. And after the first quarter, he didn't look like a second-year starter in only his second playoff game. He looked dominant. His stats were, 16 for 31? So, yeah, a little bit over 50%, but he was on point. He took the reads. He went for the easy routes, too. He didn't really try to force anywhere, and he didn't have pickable throws. Brady was looking at it, and this is what I don't get about the defense. He was only targeted in the middle. It was only going to Edelman. It was only going to Gronk. It was only going to Hogan down the middle. You weren't creative run routes. You got James White maybe starting with a few of the flat passes and go out there, but I'm like, Andy Reid, Bob Sutton, what are you doing? Don't do this for America. For anybody who's not a New England Patriot fan, don't do this to us. And they did it, and the refs did it, and I'm sick to my stomach.
I was listening to Channing Crowder today on 560 WQAM down here in Miami, former Miami Dolphins defensive player. And I just breaking down the fact that all those slant routes that the Patriots did and the Chiefs couldn't stop it for the life of them. And I guess that's why they fired their one dude. But kudos to, first off, I gotta praise, everybody's praising him right now, Tony Romo.
God, so good.
One of the best color analyzing in a long time, really. He literally broke down the plays and told you who, what, when, where, and how, and why. Okay? So, is that Cesar?
Yo, it is. How you guys doing?
Hey, man.
Good, buddy.
We're talking about the Patriots-Chiefs games. We haven't talked about the Rams yet, because so we were waiting for you. But we're in the middle of the Chiefs. And it's Andrew at the same time.
Oh,
Dear
look
Lord.
at that, dude.
Oh, you just walked in. All right, cool.
Oh.
Yeah, man, just pop in. You don't have your computer or nothing?
What's that?
You don't have your computer or anything, but
I just popped right in.
okay, you just popped right in. Fine, then we'll go over to my office. You can get. It doesn't have a plug, so it's on my light. But yeah, what's up, guys? We got our other two members here. We were talking about the freaking Chiefs and Patriots game. I've got whoa! I'm gonna take off Chris Berman being stunned at the AFC Championship game because I was showing up the freaking the roughing the passer call. But still, kudos to Tony Romo, showing who, what, where, and when, and how as color analyst. He explained things so that a layman could understand it and could look for it. And so that was my probably the funnest thing about that game. If there was anything fun about the ending towards that game, it was how Romo called it. He called the pass to Gronkowski. So basically saying, look, if they put this guy on him, they're going to throw to Gronk. If they don't throw to Gronk, they'll probably throw it over here. And lo and behold, they throw to Gronk for that massive play for the Patriots. And towards the end of that game, and yeah, it's kudos to Tony Romo. But that roughing the passer play, I mean, he hit his arm, and I was very incensed about it because I think they just gave was it Tom Brady the benefit of the doubt because he's Tom Brady. It's basically like how James Harden always gets up to the line in basketball, which is also kind of tiring for me as well because it's starting to get ridiculous how much he gets up to the free throw line. It's insane. All right, And yeah, what do you guys want to say about the game? You guys are in here now. Cesar, what were your impressions about the Patriots and the Chiefs?
Well, I mean, it's not surprising as it ever. I mean, I'm just looking forward to the next game just because obviously I have a lot more on stake there. But, I mean, I will say this. It was a great season for Patrick Mahomes. I mean, the guy really couldn't have done better. Sorry, I'm going to get on my Uber really quickly, and then I will be right back with you.
That's great.
Perfect.
That's great.
All right, now I'm on.
That's
awesome,
on the call,
okay? So, but yeah, no, I think Patrick Mahomes did amazingly. I think that team is the future. Travis Kelce, I mean, they obviously need to pick up a couple pieces on defense, but all in all, I really am excited for that team. I mean, Andy Reid obviously couldn't make it to the next level and couldn't take Patrick Mahomes to that level, but
Full Reid.
I think that
Yeah,
I think that team is primed for a great year next year. And I mean, at some point, Tom Brady's gonna finally retire. I think.
When he's 45.
That'll happen.
45.
50,
Someone brought up an interesting point. The first Super Bowl that Brady was in was against the Rams.
Yeah.
So if
it's Kurt Warner.
Right. So some people are thinking it would be poetic justice if he wins this Super Bowl. Sorry, Cesar.
It's not happening.
And then he retires. Which I think that would be for the benefit of all humanity. If
No, he's gonna want 7. He's gonna want 7 Super Bowl championships because nobody. I don't think anybody would get. He'd have more rings than Michael Jordan. Okay, he wants 7. Okay. So the officiating for that game, I have a problem with the roughing the passer call, but overall, just kind of, it wasn't that big of a deal compared to the other game.
What happened in that game?
Huh?
What happened in the other game?
There was a phantom roughing the passer call on the Chiefs against Tom Brady, where basically the defensive lineman for the Chiefs waved his hand in front of his face, hit his elbow a little bit or shoulder,
I know.
and thus, I guess Brady kind of had like a reaction, so it might have looked.
Obviously, I'll talk about the big one. I mean, in fact, there's a lawsuit been filed on behalf of the season ticket holders and the team. I mean, I don't blame them. I mean, I would lose my shit if that happened to my team. You know, like I went, oh yeah, and then it's insane how much shit he was talking. I'm like, I honestly can't disagree with you. I feel for you. It's almost like being a Kings fan during the Lakers time when who was it, Donahue, the
Tim
coach,
Donaghy.
or the referee was doing the same kind of calls. Obviously, I don't think this one was on purpose, but it was a horrendous non-call. And I mean, to my delight, obviously the Rams made it to the Super Bowl, and I mean, obviously we still have to give credit to Zerline for making that 57-yard kick. So
no, I don't think anybody's taking that away from Zerline. That's a heck of a kick. Although I kind of knew it was coming.
And he had more. He could have kicked the 65-yarder if he wanted to with that much.
Yeah, he had a ton of leg to spare on that one. I'm not taking anything away from Zerline. That being said, it shouldn't have even been in that situation. And I know there were terrible calls on both sides of the field throughout the game, but dang, that one was just so egregious.
It was.
Yeah, it's what everybody's talking about right now. They're talking about more about that than the game, which is an issue for the league.
I mean, at the same time, I think we were talking about it. We do have two of the biggest markets in the game playing at the Super Bowl, and I mean, it's great for LA. I mean, we're opening a new stadium in a couple of years. I mean, the whole fact, again, referring back to Chargers and the fact they don't have a home, I think this will really bring back the excitement to it. I mean, LA's had a couple rough years in terms of sports. We haven't had a championship in what, like,
I trade you guys' rough years for for at least the last since LeBron left Miami, I traded.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically us as well.
Back-to-back National League championships for the Dodgers. The Kings have won 2 Stanley Cups.
But I don't watch hockey.
Yeah, but still, it's in your building. I mean, the Kings own that Staples Center, so it's um, but still, like.
But I mean, basketball reigns supreme generally in LA. Baseball's a close second, but now with football, if we get a Super Bowl this year, I think they can start kind of inching their way into that market.
No, it's perfect for the league. They've moved. They moved essentially. They got 2 teams in the span of 3 seasons, and all of a sudden you got one in the Super Bowl. Thanks to Jeff Fisher.
Yes.
Exactly. All hail.
All hail Jeff Fisher for 7-9ing his way to the unemployment line.
Right. But I mean, we'll see. I like I said, I'm excited for the Super Bowl. I really can't stress how crazy it's going to be to like cheer for a team for once that's in the Super Bowl and actually mean it. And
that's a funny feeling. I've never had that feeling. I wonder why.
And then, I mean, the one thing I am worried about is the whole Todd Gurley situation. I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if it really was a mental thing or if he was having an off day. But I'm really hoping these 2 weeks will bring him back to normal because we definitely need Todd Gurley to create some space offense.
You know, it's an interesting point someone brought up. Apparently, this would be, assuming that all of the starting rosters remain the same, this would be the second time that two running backs started the same Super Bowl from the same college. In this case, it would be Gurley and Sony Michel.
Oh,
really?
I forget who the first one was. It was a couple of years ago. And they both played. Oh, it was one of the ones with Marshawn Lynch in it. So I'm guessing either
Cal?
For Cal, right? And I don't know who the opposing running back was.
Okay. As far as maybe from the refs' angles at game speed, you could tell. But man, now there's talks about should we have a challenge for penalties and things like that. I'm actually against it, to be honest.
It's just going to open up a Pandora's box because, like a little minor, because you see people complaining all the time about pass interferences. You see players are like throwing the flag, and that's a legitimate bang play, and I can't really fault a referee for getting that one right or wrong, because they don't see things in 1,000 frames a second. They see things in 24. Yes, humans see in 24 frames per second, but that's your science lesson for the day. Anyway, speaking of blatant calls, though, did anyone see someone recreated the play and on Madden? And the Madden referees called it pass interference.
Really?
Yes.
Hold on, I'm gonna see if I can find it on YouTube. Madden 19 Saints vs. Rams, full sim. No, nothing new so far, but okay. But that's pretty funny if they did that. Okay. All right, guys. That's okay. So.
Are we going to save the preview for next week? The Super Bowl preview, I think.
Yeah, when we get a better idea as far as who's injured, who's
Or after that lawsuit goes through, and then they end up replaying.
You know, that'd be a funny thing to see, man. That I could see Adam Silver doing that and just be like, you know how much money we're gonna generate on that day for that replay of the game. You know how the ratings will skyrocket if they actually did it. You know, if they actually that's the win, by the way. If they actually redid maybe not the entire game, but at least, okay, everybody, back to the Superdome. We're going to replay the last 2 minutes and see what happens. That would be pretty funny, but it'd be kind of like that weird, that rain delay in 2008 between the Phillies and the Rays, where they had a rain delay in Philadelphia and they stopped the World Series. Was it the clinching game?
I don't remember.
I think it was Game 5. I thought it was Game 5 or one of those of the World Series, and
it was like in the middle one.
Yeah, it was like in the 5th inning or something. Like, you know what, guys, we're just gonna come back tomorrow and keep playing. It's kind of weird like that. But that's getting off topic for baseball. Speaking of baseball, it's a good. Unless you want to say something.
No.
Okay, let's transition. Major League Baseball just released the Hall of Fame class of 2019, and Charles is pretty happy. I know that.
I'm happy too.
Yeah, actually, this is probably one of the classes that I really don't have any issue with. Anybody whatsoever. It's
I agree. A lot of Yankees, but
a lot. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of Mariano Rivera is in, and he's unanimous. That's
of course. I mean, as it should be.
I'm so happy that we finally have a unanimous, because it was just so arbitrary. So many players could have been unanimous in recent years. Cal Ripken Jr., Derek Jeter, Ken Griffey Jr.
For sure,
Ken Griffey. Yeah.
All of them were within 1 or 2 votes, and it was just so arbitrary that there were these voters who were saying, "I'm going to vote no just for the principle."
Yeah, because Babe Ruth didn't get unanimously in. I'm like, well, that's because some idiot back in 1950 didn't realize that he's an idiot.
But whatever.
Okay, yeah.
But I'm glad that they finally just said enough of this. And it couldn't really go to a more deserving guy. Not only was he a high-quality player on the field, he was a high-quality person off the field. And he really... He is the definition of the perfect closer, really. I know that he gave up some pretty big home runs in the 2001 World Series that brought the Diamondbacks back into it. But overall, he was just an absolutely dominant player.
All right, Charles. Say your piece.
All right. I'll do this for Mariano. I love the fact that he was unanimous. It should have been Ken Griffey that was the first guy. I think he was off by like 3 votes. Sometimes you get voters for the Hall of Fame that believe that, let me give it to this guy because we know this guy is a sure and lock. And Mariano was a sure and lock. He had basically 1 pitch in his historic career, but he was the guy. He is the epitome. He's the setup. You know, he and we're going to bring him back to my second love, which is wrestling. He's basically your Undertaker, and when it's WrestleMania, you're going 22-0, baby, until you meet that Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns. Spoiler alert for those who are behind. But you know, when it was Mania season, Taker's match was either going to be very good, great, or just kind of struggling along. But you know he was going to win it. That's the sensation that you felt when Mariano was in play. And the fact is, he was the perennial all-star, perennial best player, such a good guy on and off the field. I remember I got to see him in his final year when they were against the Rays, and they were losing, so he didn't come out, but he still came out for autographs afterwards. It was between me and one really fat guy who was shouting in Spanish, "For los hijos." I'm like, no, get out of my way, forget the kids for me. Mariano, for those who are coming in, they know I'm a Yankee fan. He was my favorite Yankee. And a lot of people are shocked by that because they always think of Jeter. That's the other quintessential Yankee in the modern day game.
The quintessential Marlin, really.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Love me some Jeets, love me the captain, but it was Mariano because that was tit for tat the best player in his role in his position. And I know there's some flack in the old era of baseball where they say, hey, you shouldn't really reward closers because back in the day, wink, wink, looking at you, Goose Gossage, they say, hey, we could be out there 8 innings. But even if he was an inning and 2/3 of it, he was dominant for the most part. Yeah, he broke our hearts a little bit against the Diamondbacks, and he kind of messed up some things, but it happens. Nobody is unhittable, but Mariano Rivera was damn near unhittable. And that's why he's a Sandman, because you're going to sleep.
It's very few people that get a sports science segment dedicated to their ability to throw a cutter and how a couple of millimeters change creates all these crazy breaks on his cutter. It's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And I was just searching through Twitter. Sorry to take over things again. More people have walked on the moon than people who scored on Mariano Rivera in the postseason.
Wow.
So, 11 people scored on him, and 12 people have been on the moon.
Have there been 12 people on the moon?
That was the stat that I saw, the one that you're reading. Yeah.
So that, I think that in a nutshell says how dominant this guy is.
I've always, throughout the career, every time I watch Yankee highlights on ESPN or what have you, or even just It's that 2003 World Series. I did not want any part of Mariano Rivera when the Marlins faced the Yankees. Like I'm like, because I knew I was like, if he's in the game and the Marlins are down, there's no chance we're gonna score against them. Almost zero chance. Okay, I know he had the 2001 World Series, but he was still one of the most dominant closers at that time. And he was in his prime, and I'm like, no, the Marlins need to find a way to be ahead of the Yankees in some way, and they thankfully did. But he was the scariest player for me. Just thinking about him, like, man, because I don't like the Yankees, but one of the reasons was because of him, because he was so automatic that it was like, if they have a lead, he's just gonna win it. And
I mean, it's like you guys said. I mean, he is the platform. He is the standard.
Yeah.
He is the ultimate closer, and I'm so glad he's not only in, but like you guys said, unanimously. You couldn't have come to a better guy, in all honesty. He really couldn't have. And again, it's crazy to see someone who I grew up watching now in the Hall of Fame. So it is a little bit, a little striking and a little kind of make me feel old.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I really am not. I'm not bitter about it whatsoever. Thank you. Just getting off my Uber now.
That's great.
So, yeah, I mean, I'm happy to see that. The rest of the class is also amazing. Seeing Moose in there, seeing Doc in there, and then Edgar Martinez. It's a great class, like you guys said. It's overall just an amazing class. Seeing someone like Edgar Martinez spend his entire career at the the Mariners. And then, I mean, Moose was amazing. Never the biggest Yankee fan, but Moose was amazing.
Yeah,
and
go ahead. That's the thing that's touched about, because me and Francisco talked about it. We're just going to I'm going to segue it. We were shocked that Mussina actually got in there. Because
this quickly.
Very quickly. I mean, this was like his, I think, 4th or 5th year on the ballot. And Mussina, he had his time in Baltimore. He had his time with us. And to me, I always thought he was a very good player. But I guess with the Hall of Fame, it goes down to that seeing eye test where sometimes you don't take into what the postseason accolades might be, but you look at the overall bill of the resume. Because I feel, Cesar, you didn't come on so late when I had that opinion that I'm not a big Hall of Fame guy. Mm-hmm. I think it's more or less like scratching backs and that's it, and I'll keep it PG for the moment. But looking at Moose's overall stats is, he had, 270 wins to 150 losses. His ERA was a 3.8. He was, pretty prime as a player, but in his later years, he was bringing it, especially in his final couple of seasons when he was winning. I think it was like the season before he retired, he had about 20 games won, which was the first time he ever had 20 games that he won in the season. I know he was an All-Star a couple of times. A few things go with it. So it's interesting because there's not a guy here that was not, mind you, it's 4, so it's not the most outstanding number, but it's different for the Baseball Hall of Fame because you talk about picky, they're picky, man. Who they want to get in, but none of these 4 guys that come in there, I can really say don't like. Doc Halladay, Roy was an excellent player.
Hell yeah, he
I
was.
talked about it. In Toronto, he was the most relevant guy, and he was like the ultimate guy, and he was one of the most sought out pitchers once he finally gave out Toronto. And then Edgar making it on the 11th hour was great for him because that opens up the doorways that maybe, just maybe, the MLB writers and those who go for the Hall of Fame, those who oversee the Hall of Fame should really just kind of burn it down and rebuild and figure out what's the best way to bring guys in to truly recognize their game instead of playing the politics of the steroid era, which I'm not a fan of, and also play the politics of introducing relief pitching, setup men, and closers. For the Hall of Fame, at least.
Yeah, I mean, that's true because Mariano was a setup guy in '96, so I mean it'll open up these, especially now in baseball, because now baseball's sabermetrics and all this other stuff. I mean, the game is evolving to the point where, I mean, you have managers starting their relief pitchers instead of actual starters, putting up their closer for the first 1 or 2 innings of the game, and then putting in their starter. So things are getting a little weird. So at some point, you need some sort of flexibility with the I guess the traditional positional players, and having Edgar in as a DH, finally recognizing that position, legitimizing it in some sense as well. We've had closers getting in now for Mariano, but he's the best one, so if he's the definitive closer. But now you got Edgar Martinez, who was really the first definitive DH, the first definitive guy where you're like, that's what a designated hitter should do. That's what they should look like. That's what they should be. And now we're starting to see it again. I mean, we saw, and David Ortiz is probably the next guy who I would imagine would be in that position. But then you've got the fact that you've got maybe like a Miguel Cabrera or Albert Pujols who will end their career most likely as DHs. So you have to recognize that position at some point, because it does keep some guys' careers alive.
And I'm glad that they let him in because, well, as you mentioned, he kind of defined the DH in the first place. But beyond that, his impact on Seattle, whether it was, I think he had a game-winning hit that kind of saved Seattle baseball.
In the 95 playoffs against the Yankees.
Right. Everyone credits Griffey for coming from first to home, which, don't get me wrong, that's epic. But he was the one that got the hit. Martinez was, and he's still beloved by people in Seattle to this day. So I'm glad that people were able to look beyond the, but he's a DH, he's not a position player argument, and just saw that he is a good player worthy of being in the Hall of Fame.
And one thing, I want to get back to Mike Mussina a little bit. Charles, he won 20 games his final season at 39 years old. He was 20-9 with a 3.37 ERA in the American League, and he was unfortunately 1 year off from the Yankees winning in 2009. So he doesn't have a ring. So, but who knows? He probably would have won it with the Yankees. Who knows?
If he stayed, and that was just his retirement, remember, compelled the signing of CC, and then just the whole trio, because of him, Teixeira, and then AJ Burnett. So it was filling a void. It just goes back, because you don't think of Mussina. Sometimes when a guy has a 17-year career, it's expected for them to have a lot of wins and a lot of losses. But looking at the aggregate, his final, and I'm just going to look at his final 5 years on stats wise.
I mean, his final season, he pitched 200 innings.
He was in there.
Yeah.
So it's good that they're taking attention to this, because, I mean, there's still some politics at play where the voters weren't going to push on to anybody of the steroid era. No Barry, no Clemens, even though Clemens, that's the one who I think the biggest, my personal opinion, from the steroid era at the moment, the push should go to for at least getting some votes. And, McGuire, Barry, Sosa, they all had some dilution tests that came out a little bit. What Clemens' big thing was like, no, I'm just going to Capitol, call my trainer a liar, even though I knew what he was giving me. But hey, and then I think Manny Ramirez is on this year, but Manny tested twice for PEDs and then I think a blocking agent. So that's not going to fly. But this is good to set up because, to bring it back, not just the Mussina, but I think of bringing this both Edgar and to, Mariano. It's just, this is a good setup to say, hey, he might not have been – there's going to be some guys who weren't stellar in postseason because maybe they didn't get the opportunity to go to the postseason, but they were consistently consistent. And that's what I feel like Mussina was. Because for Mariano's sakes, the next best guy who's come up, I think, is going to be Trevor Hoffman. I don't know if he's already available or –
He's in.
He's in already? Okay, so there's like another one that's in my head. What's that?
Hoffman's in already.
There's like another one who's on the horizon of like closers and stuff, but it just can't rate to me. Get back to me in 2020, we'll talk. And then, the DH stuff, you're going to get – it's going to be flooded with it. I mean, I would even argue that Gary Sheffield, in theory, played out as a DH when he was in his final years, but hey – being a slugger, but you're gonna. But David Ortiz, I think, is more of an easier transition in. I mean, aside from his PED positive testing and his second last year, the guy.
That's the thing about David Ortiz. He might, because he's such a likable guy. He was such a likable guy. He was such a great clutch hitter and a very good power hitter. Just a great hitter overall. Even his final seasons. Mm-hmm. Maybe his personality. I mean, he did get caught already, and with the DH in now, maybe he opens up that door for, hey guys, this whole drug stuff. All right, fine. But we'll let Dave Ortiz in as the first guy to.
I mean, at the same time, you have to remember like what Dave Ortiz did for the Red Sox. I mean, before Dave Ortiz, not that he did it on his own,
right?
But he did help bring a world championship to the Red Sox. It's a pretty big thing that I think we have to include. So while we do have the PED comments, but at the same time, you have to balance that against the fact.
But do you think? Yeah, he had one of the greatest moments in postseason history. You know, with that home run after Dave Roberts.
Exactly.
You know,
the steal.
Yeah, the steal. Your manager actually. he looked nothing like he did back then, man. And that 10-year challenge, man. He is the one that aged. That's for sure. Dave Roberts. Okay, but do you think, Cesar? Do you think that if Ortiz gets in, it would open up the door for guys like Bonds and Sosa, McGuire, Clemens, maybe?
Not whatsoever.
None.
I don't believe so. No.
Really?
I like you said. I think Ortiz was such a likable character. Additionally, I think you have to weigh that whole Red Sox thing. That part of his career, that part of his legacy, I think that outweighs anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all these other players. I mean, Sosa and McGuire, sure they had the home run race, but neither of them actually got a world championship.
Actually, McGuire did.
McGuire did at the A's, right?
Yeah, with the A's. Yeah. In the beginning of his career.
But I mean, he wasn't the titular player in that point. That was almost more for the sake of him. And then I don't know. I mean, with Bonds is obviously one of the most disliked players ever in the MLB, especially by people like me from Los Angeles who despise the guy. Other than that, I mean, you have Kurt Schilling, just as disliked as anyone. I think, referencing back, Roger Clemens could eventually make it. Because I think, honestly, as he was getting into his later years with the Astros, the fact that he's still putting up that heat and bringing up those numbers and playing that well in the playoffs, I think that is something that eventually will be taken into account. But yeah, I definitely see David being the first. And again, like I said, you just have to weigh everything that happened in his career. I mean, he started off with the Twins kind of slowly, and maybe obviously there's a good argument to be made that the reason he got so much better was because of the PEDs, but I don't know. I don't put him in the same categories.
Okay, so playing off his likability, playing off the politics that Charles doesn't like about the Hall of Fame standards, could get him in rather than a guy like Sosa, who he didn't win a ring. McGuire, I guess more egregious because you could tell he was taking the stuff. I guess Clemens. If out of all those guys, Clemens would be a good one. I guess Clemens and Bonds, because like you said, Clemens was the dominant pitcher with all those Cy Young awards and everything, and the fact that he played so well in the postseason, especially getting to the Yankees and getting the Astros to the World Series in 2005 was another thing.
So let me ask you guys a quick question on this, because we're talking about likability, and this isn't more of a stat-based question. It's more about bringing value to the sport. There was nothing hotter in those late 90s than Sammy and McGuire, and because it's PED, so maybe not just the revenue, but the showcasing TV spectacle that you brought, the contribution of entertainment-wise to there's no way to track it, there's no way to adjust it, but you just know that. Can that be something that the voters should consider, unless you're going to go pure stats? I mean, you can't be in 1930s, 1940s, 1950s mode when it's no longer radio dominating the entertainment, and we're coming into a different segue where people are watching highlights on ESPN, YouTube, whatnot, to watching live games. Because we're getting into that generation in about 5-10 years. Going to be who's the highlight guy? Is that something that might be considered? Making the game fun, because baseball is a dying sport.
Yeah, I mean go ahead. Yeah, I mean, okay, fine. I
stir the pot more and more.
I think likability is really. I mean, look, I think it's a thing that you do have to consider. I mean, look at I'm gonna go to the NBA, and it's such a big deal when those guys make the Hall of Fame and everything, because you have that connection to them. Because obviously the NBA is personality driven. And I think that's, for me, I think baseball needs more of that than anything else. Baseball needs more personality-driven stuff. That's why I like the bat flips. I love that stuff. I love when pitchers. I'd love for pitchers to have their own version of a bat flip, if you would say, just I love that sort of showboating type of stuff because I see it in basketball. I see Joel Embiid, blocking James Harden and just talking trash to him. It's perfect. I love it. It's fantastic. I think baseball needs more of that stuff, and I think that putting guys in the Hall of Fame who I think this next generation that's coming in, because Mariano and those guys, they were like, they still follow, especially as a Yankee, the Yankee way, be professional, be classy, that sort of thing. Don't do much trash talk, any of that stuff. But now baseball, you got this kind of conflict between the unwritten rules of baseball, which I also hate. I hate the unwritten rules of baseball. Okay, I think that baseball writers, especially as new younger ones get into, they need to really do their homework as far as likability about guys, because they need to market their own sport as well. I mean, they're in the industry as well. They need to make baseball fun, and having fun guys, like I said, like David Ortiz, guys like that, getting into the Hall of Fame really helps the sport, because the Hall of Fame is a marketing tool for those sports as well. It's a museum. It's the collection of the greatest ever. It's the Super Smash Brothers of their sports. It's a celebration of baseball or basketball or football or hockey. So baseball needs to celebrate their guys, and especially their popular guys. I mean, Sammy Sosa was my favorite player growing up, so I would love to see him in the Hall of Fame. Okay, I know what he did, but I still found him one of the most likable personalities, and I really enjoyed it when he played. And I remember seeing him. The last game I ever saw him play was at Fenway Park when the Texas Rangers were playing them. And even though he didn't hit a home run or anything, I was still super excited just to see him. So writers need to take that into account, man. I get excited when I see I'm excited for Roy Halladay getting in, because I remember seeing him. He was such a likable guy, and he deserved it more than anything else. And it's posthumous, which is unfortunate, but they really do need to take that into account. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely don't disagree with that. I mean, it does come down to what we were talking about, the old school versus the new school. One of the players that was on the Dodgers just left us. Obviously, Yasiel's been the target of a lot of criticism because of whether it be the bat flips or the kissing or I mean, anything that he did was kind of, he was a target. So I don't know exactly where I draw the line, but no, I agree with, I mean, I remember Eric Gagne when he was in his heyday. He used to have his fist pump. And
he won the Cy Young and the MVP in the same year, right?
I don't think he won the MVP. I think he just won the Cy Young.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. But that was Kershaw. Kershaw won the MVP Cy Young.
That's right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Wrong Dodger.
But I mean, there's stuff like that. There's that, like, nastiness that comes from, like, who's another? Like, well, Gagne was one of those. But when you have a pitcher, especially a closer, who can bring that heat, who can bring that nastiness, I'm trying to think of the person I'm actually referencing in my head, but it's a little blanking. But I definitely think there does need to be some added flavor to the game. Like, as we mentioned, maybe when you're stealing a base, give your teammates a little shout out, or
I mean, they do have that. Those guys, they have all their signs and stuff. I love seeing that. Like you said, like, I love seeing that stuff.
But I think it just comes down to the purist being like, it's too much. It has to be classier. It has to be less of this. It's an old school game. I do agree that we do have to take that into account, at least in terms of the way baseball's played and whether they want to survive this avalanche of different sports, especially the NBA and the NFL. But I don't know if we should take that into account in regard to, like, the Hall. I think a lot of that just comes down to numbers. I think a lot of that comes down to, and I mean, maybe obviously likability is a factor, but it shouldn't be the determining factor.
Right.
I definitely think it just comes down to numbers. And I mean, I won't say that numbers are the only things, because obviously you want to take into account rings, you want to take into account winning seasons, quality of players that were on their team, whether they carried, whether they're the MVP, I mean, I don't know about all-star games, but to an extent, you want to take it into account. So, likability, sure. In this new media, maybe it's something we should consider, but to use it as a measuring stick or a determinative factor, I'd want it to play a small role.
Okay.
Just the tiniest role.
All right.
Again, Mariano was likable, but he wasn't the loudest player. He was a good Yankee. You know, he kept to himself. He was a good soldier, and I think that's a exemplary example, or that's exemplary of what someone in the Hall of Fame should be like.
Alrighty. No thoughts? Yeah.
I mean, y'all covered it pretty well. I think the only thing I would add is kind of going back to the kind of the flair of the game. I think there can be a good balance. I've seen video of some players, not in the majors, but in the lower levels, who do a bat flip where the thing goes 30 feet in the air and they just kind of stand on top of home plate watching it for 30 seconds or whatever. I think that's taking it a
okay,
little
well, that
bit
one
too
I would
far.
throw a fastball to his head the next
Exactly.
next time it's out. That one I would. Okay.
I think that's taking it a little bit too far. But at the same time, there should be a bit more flair. Like, I'm glad MLB has started doing the Players Weekend. They're starting to loosen their restrictions on cleats or other equipment. Before, I think it was just it could only be black or white.
Right.
But now they're starting to add a little bit more color to it, things like that. So they're starting to get with the times a bit. My personal favorite is Brad Boxberger with his Players Weekend jerseys. He has the emoji of a box and a cheeseburger. So they are starting to lighten up a little bit, but you kind of can't take it too far to the point where everyone on Earth would be expecting you to get a beanball on the next at bat.
Okay. Alrighty. So that's baseball talk, I guess. We still have more topics about it, but for now, we'll move on. I wanted to talk about the fact that nobody wants Carmelo Anthony anymore. Isn't it sad? Don't you feel sorry for him now? I mean, I know he's got millions of dollars, but as a player,
I don't know how sorry I feel for him because he got paid this year, and
that's true.
I'd be okay with being considered sorry and making $20 million.
No, I mean like sorry from I guess like I know Cesar, you play basketball from a player standpoint, just competitive standpoint,
Well, of course. I mean, it sucks, but at the same time, at some point you realize you're washed, and I think Melo needs to understand that. I think who was it? The Lakers were willing to take him on as a bench player, but he still wants to start. There's no way. I mean, he defensively, he's a negative. Offensively, sure, he can shoot, but he stops the ball, and he's not good enough to create for other players anymore. So I think he's a relic at this point, and he needs to understand that. If he wants to come in and help a young team, I'd say someone like Tyson Chandler. I think he's a perfect example. Someone who on Lakers, he's mentoring, say, Ivica Zubac. That's a great role that you take on. You come over, you teach someone like Brandon Ingram how to play a little bit better in ISO situations. I mean, the fact that he wants to come in and still be a star, a 2B or a 1B, I think it's absurd. And until he realizes that, he's not going to be in the league.
I like your point about him being more. He would be so valuable as a teacher, as a guy, as a steward toward, or I guess Mr. Miyake of sort.
Yeah.
For some, because look at Kristaps Porzingis, how much he loved playing with Carmelo. He sings his praises because Carmelo taught him so much. So I think you got a good point there as to Carmelo maybe really does need to rethink what he could be finishing out his career. Because if not, he's done. He's going to China.
Which, I mean, hey, I would go to China if they pay me $20 million.
Yeah, I mean, he could be another failed Knicks player like Stephon Marbury and go to China. But still, it's still terrible for his legacy. I mean, there was that talk of Dwayne Wade before finishing his career in China or something, but I don't think he's going to do that because I mean, it feels like, okay, you got so washed up that you had to end up in China. Because I was such a fan of Carmelo, in this, when he was with the Nuggets.
Yeah.
Like
It's great.
there was like an episode of Ned's Declassified on Nickelodeon. Where, I think he was trying to get his Carmelo shoes or a Carmelo jersey or something like that. But Carmelo actually guest starred in it, and it was a hilarious
That's
episode.
cool.
Yeah. But he was so likable back then and everything. And he still is likable, actually. I mean, he might not like Kevin Garnett and Serial at this point, but y'all remember that?
Honey Nut Cheerios is my favorite insult that you can make to somebody.
God, Kevin Garnett's another guy that, man, I wish he was still playing, to be honest.
I will say, and I make this disclaimer fully, I don't really follow the NBA that much, but I sort of think this is kind of his own doing a little bit, because I know he would still be a superstar if he was on the Nuggets, or at least he would be that one.
I don't think the Nuggets want him.
Well, there was a point where at least they were trying to keep him, and then he jumped ship to.
Well, he demanded a trade to the New York Knicks, even though he could
wanted
have.
to go home.
Yeah, even though he could have perfectly waited out the entire season, see how far he went in the playoffs with the Nuggets, and then go to New York as a free agent. But
I don't
You
know.
wanted them to get something.
I'm not sure if y'all believe in karma.
okay,
But
that was nice of him.
to do what?
To be traded at least, and then the Nuggets got something in return. But
That's true.
either way, the Nuggets and the Knicks, nobody won that trade.
Right.
But that toxicity of Carmelo, I mean, you could see it. Remember Linsanity, everybody?
Mm-hmm.
Remember how awesome the Knicks were without Carmelo during that stretch before Jeremy Lin got destroyed in Miami? I mean, but then Carmelo comes back, and all of a sudden the whole makeup of the Knicks offense changed, and Mike Woodson had to find different ways to try and work with them. But Carmelo wants the rock, he wants the ball in his hands, and that's the issue with today's NBA as well. I mean, Carmelo hasn't really adapted to today's game, right?
Yeah, it's tough because I mean you gotta allow them doing free flow offense, just passing the open guy, and he's such an ISO. Look, some guys' skill sets are best to have the ball and shoot. Jimmy Butler is my modern day example at the moment. But part of it too is that I think he put his faith in the wrong team, because him and Mike D'Antoni had some problems in New York. Like hands down, Mike D'Antoni quit, from being the New York's coach because of the toxicity, because he couldn't do what James done and he couldn't do what Carmelo. It doesn't work going back to that kind of relationship when you know that style of offense is not fit for you. Part of it's ego. He would still be valuable. Look, there's probably going to be at least 5 teams that could utilize him, as a bench or a weak starter because someone's injured. It's just, this just might not be the year. Next year, maybe. He probably has about 2 years of actually playing the game if he hasn't been blackballed out. So it's a mixture of karma, trying to find the right fit for him, and just him being a little bit because he was always kind of like that. Remember in the year where it was him, Melo, I quote him twice, Melo, LeBron, Chris Paul, and Dwayne. Everybody said, let's wait a year to go sign these big contracts. He's like, no, I want big money now. Denver, send me out so I can get my big money from Knicks. And then you wait out, and then all of a sudden all these the Banana Boat Club are going out, and they're making all their cash a little bit more than he is. He just always kind of did his own way, and now he's kind of paying root for it.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about to the other side of that trade, the Bulls, who actually, the Rockets actually had to pay the Bulls just to take Carmelo. But still, the Bulls are full on the tank boat, guys. All right, so is Zion really worth it? Is it really that? Like, should teams? Because I'm gonna look at this. I'm gonna pull up the standings right now. Okay, because right now the Bulls and who's the other worst team in the NBA as well right now?
The Cavs.
The Cavs.
The Cavs.
Oh, of course, Dan Gilbert and his.
So that means the Cavs are gonna win.
What was it that urinating tree? He said it was a team built by LeBron for LeBron with no LeBron.
Yeah, essentially that's what the Cavs are, and I mean it's bad, but I mean, okay, guys, start talking about Zion because.
Well, I'll give a take because I have to leave in a couple minutes.
Go ahead, dude.
And I'm actually very, very interested in this. I think Zion possibly is going to be one of the best players that I've seen in my generation. I mean, I know I'm a little bit high on him.
Whoa, hey.
But, I mean, this kid's an athletic freak. He plays great defense on the help. I mean, he rebounds. He's smart. He has a handle. Maybe not as good as LeBron, but he's already, 275 pounds
Yeah.
in college?
Yeah.
I don't think it's I don't think it's gonna. I hope it's not a weight issue that ever slows him down with something like Charles Barkley later in his years. But I think that's a comparison as of now. But Charles Barkley, who's developing a jump shot. So I think he's the number one pick.
So what? So what about his game? Do you think? I mean, because you are saying that he's going to be one of the best in the generation. What is that X factor about his game that makes you say that?
His handle, obviously, his immense athleticism. I think he's a decent passer for his age. Defensively, like I said, he helps really, really, really well. I mean, some of these block shots are just amazing. And other than that, I also think he's just a hard worker for a kid his age. I mean, he's already experienced all the hype that's coming along with this new generation of athlete, and he's dealt with it pretty well. And then he chose to go to Duke, which to me was a pretty telling sign that he's not just looking for some hype just for now. No, he wants to be a coachable player. I mean, you don't go to Duke and Coach K and kind of expect to be a diva. So he's working with the team, and he has so many other stars on that team with Cam Reddish and R.J. Barrett and Tyrus Jones' his little brother. I mean, I think I think that told me a lot about him, and I really think I'm very high on this kid.
What year is he in school, Zion?
What year?
He's a freshman.
Yeah, he's a freshman. Yeah,
he's a
I'm
freshman.
going to throw a wrench into your just playing devil's advocate here.
Okay.
What if he decides, you know what? I don't want to be a one and done. What happens? Does the league decide to implode?
It'd be funny for the Cavs. That's for sure.
I mean, I'd be completely shocked because why not take guaranteed money?
Yeah. I mean, unless he really is that sort of different type of player who actually does want to win, but I mean, one blown out knee and.
But yeah, I do have to leave you guys now.
All right, Cesar.
Great hour.
Cesar.
I'll see you guys next week. I'm excited to talk Super Bowl.
Yeah, Super Bowl next
Take care,
week.
buddy.
All right, guys, take care.
Bye.
Good night.
I'm going to steal his thought process to go to you. In college basketball, you don't really find a lot of loyalty because the program already has your replacement the day you play your first game, especially in Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, a lot of big names in. I mean, he's averaging 21 points, 9 rebounds. He's improving his three-point game. He is going to be, barring any kind of substantial injury, a 1 or 2 guy. And I can't even think of a second guy who's better than him, but he'll be in the top 3. And for basketball, that's just so much money. Most of the time, too, when you're that high of a lottery pick, you're also guaranteed kind of like a starting job, which is that's the thing about basketball. If you're picked from 1 through 8, you're going to be a starter. If you're picked afterwards, there might be some time that you see the floor. I mean, hell, the basketball executives just stash dudes overseas and wait. Dario Saric is an example. So there's guys who are picked because they're a reflection of need in the first round. There's guys who are picked as guys who are a reflection of
Oh, say that again, Charles. You kind of cut out there for a little bit. The last thought. Hello. Alrighty. Actually, let's see. Hey, Charles, can you hear me? Ah. He's coming back. It sounds like an alien is abducting us right now. Actually, that sound.
We have a large lag right now.
Yeah. Hold on. It's the connection. It's popping back out again. All right. So, can you hear me back, Charles?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. All right.
Okay.
So what was that last sentence that you said about your last thought process?
Some guys in a lottery pick are just for development. Some guys are, going to be about potential. Some guys are sure out dominant, and Zion's dominant. I would even venture that if they still let kids come out of high school, he would be your high school kind of player drafted in.
That's true. Yeah, I mean, his highlight reel has been surreal. It really has. I'm really excited about the NBA draft, to be honest about it. So, all right. So Zion is definitely worth the tank, right?
Yeah, but it's going to be tough because you have two other teams.
I mean, I'm looking
horrible.
at. I mean, I love a good tank race, as you all know. Okay, so right now, the worst team in the league is the Cleveland Cavaliers. They haven't even gotten double digits in wins yet. They're 9-39. They're really going for it. As soon as once they trade Kevin Love, it's all over. The New York Knicks, I mean, they're doing their darndest. And could you imagine him in New York? I mean,
I
could see, a Patrick Ewing, finagling of the draft sort of thing happening if that happens. Because look, Cleveland had their shot. Okay, they already had LeBron. I think if the league were to sort of, mess with the ping pong balls a little bit, I could see the New York Knicks pulling him out.
I mean, wouldn't you want to build an idea of
to kind of weight it down a little bit?
I mean, wouldn't you want to build that idea of Tim Hardaway, Kristaps Porzingis, and Zion Williamson? Because here's the thing: Tim Hardaway Jr. is like he's a good guard. He's not like he shouldn't be the face of your franchise right now. He is because of an injury. Yeah. But you could. Would that be what New York wants? A little bit of flash, a little bit of smack talk.
I mean, he's like, now that I'm looking at the standings now, I'm like, man, because look, as much as I love seeing the Knicks down, it's pretty bad for the league that their New York franchise. I mean, I know the Nets are actually having an okay season right now, but I mean, the Knicks are obviously the team of New York, and they've been bad for so long. I would definitely see the league kind of doing their little magic and having him drafted by them. Yeah, I mean, instead of the Phoenix Suns have had their shot, with number one draft picks. I mean, the Chicago Bulls are another kind of enticing franchise to land Zion as a new representative to that prestige that the Bulls still kind of do have, even though it's been a long now 20 plus years since Michael retired for the second time. and well, dear Lord, the Memphis Grizzlies really fell off the wagon, didn't they? They started off so well.
Yeah, okay. Well, that's why you can't put much stake into the beginning of the season. Yeah. Injuries, bad coaching. Not to say that Bickerstaff is a horrible coach. It's just they're going to try to shell out some contracts because they overpaid for Mike Conley. They overpaid for Chandler Parsons. Marc Gasol is getting back to playing very well, like an all-star level. But this is what happens when you have two or three guys with bloated contracts that are either max or max. You can't fill out your roster.
I like what BU just said, that no matter what team Zion lands on, people are going to claim the draft lottery is rigged, in part because they don't understand how probability works. And that is true. I mean, I've always thought the Edmonton Oilers rigged the draft so many times in the NHL. Even though the last one, when they got McDavid, I don't think that one was rigged at all. I think that was just the product of the NHL, just kind of they didn't really screw the pooch, but their new system of draft probability kind of screwed the league over in some sense. In that, I mean, if McDavid had landed at a like a Southern franchise or something like that, it could have really helped them out, like the Coyotes or something. But he's out in Edmonton, miring under Peter Chiarelli's terrible general management. That's another topic for another day. Alrighty. But, yeah, I'd like to see the Knicks kind of getting back to some sort of semblance of relevancy. And I like the idea of Kristaps, Tim Hardaway, and and Zion on the same team, that would sell a ton of tickets in New York. They'd be prime time. It'd be fun. Better than seeing him in Cleveland, that's for sure. Alrighty. All right, guys. So we are midway through, and we all know what that means, right?
That's time
Charles, it's your favorite segment.
Well,
It
it's
is my
Charles'
favorite
favorite. Yeah, that's for sure.
It's our non-sponsors.
Oh, nice, dude. Nice. Yes. Word from our non-sponsors. Guys, every week at the middle of the show, we give a shout out to people, places, goods, and services that we are particularly enjoying. So, who wants to go first?
You haven't gone first in a while. So.
Okay, I haven't gone first in a while. Okay, so yesterday, I was finishing my after-work jog, and I suddenly realized that I have only one bag of popcorn for food.
Dun dun dun.
In my room, so in my house. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to go to the supermarket. But y'all know me. I don't earn that much money. I know I'm a lawyer, but I don't earn that much money. I am deeply in debt, and I need to be able to afford food. And yes, I could eat at Burger King every day, and actually one time for a few months I was, and that did not do well for my health. But I found a wonderful establishment, a supermarket, if you will. Maybe not even a supermarket, more like a mid-tier market, if you would call it. But they got some good stuff, and it's Aldi's.
Aldi.
Yeah, Aldi's. Okay, Publix has some great deals and everything. We always love a good pub sub.
Mm-hmm.
But, Publix also has a little bit of a priciness to it. And I don't eat, with silver utensils, so I can't go to Whole Foods. But I go to Aldi's, because Aldi's has a ton of great food. Maybe not the name brands that you usually buy, okay? Maybe the Frosted Flakes aren't really Frosted. Actually, they actually do call them Frosted Flakes, because I don't think that name is actually trademarked. But they have their breakfast cereals. They have their breakfast bars. I went and I got a nice baguette that I could bake myself. They've got a nice selection of meats and vegetables. And the fun thing about them is sometimes they have nice knickknacks for your home. Maybe you need some shelves? Go get yourself some shelves from them. Hey, they got toaster ovens for actually pretty darn reasonable prices. I think I saw one over there for like $25 for a toaster oven. A pretty big one, a pretty nice looking big one. So Aldi's is kind of my go-to place for supermarket stuff, groceries. And I'm actually gonna go home after this and fire me up some meat instead of my air fryer, and which is another product I actually gave a shout out to. So Aldi's, thank you. And I bought 4,000 items, and it was only like $60. That's how good their prices are. So shop Aldi's. Promo code. Oh yeah, promo code cheapskate.
All right, how about you, Charles?
Alrighty, so since we kind of mentioned the whole lawyer life, I don't like to believe in stereotypes, but the one stereotype I will believe in is that most lawyers or attorneys, legal counsel, whatever we want to call themselves, like a night's whiskey. And in my liquor cabinet, and this doesn't really apply to those who are non-drinkers, so I apologize in advance, but I've been drinking on something called Long Branch. It's made by Wild Turkey. It's that Matthew McConaughey commercial that you see with his southern drawl. It is a sweet mixture of oak and smoky mesquite from Texas. And let me tell you, it's got the right kind of bite. It's bitter, but bitter in a good way, just like my love life. If you want something that's smooth, that tastes good, that you can have it as a nightcap, that you can have it for dinner. I don't encourage it during lunch because I believe that I need to keep my brain as focused as possible.
You said Matthew McConaughey drinks this?
Yeah, he mixed with it.
Okay.
He basically put some money with them. So he's just basically sponsoring.
So
he's a sponsor to my non-sponsor.
Oh, okay. So he drinks it on the Texas Longhorns bench then.
Yeah,
I'm assuming.
I'm assuming that's where his True Detective character came from, because man, once I take a nice sip of Long Branch bourbon whiskey, I tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, I want to go solve some crime. So, for the adults only, kids 21 and over, where the drinking age is legal. But my non-sponsor sponsor is Walgreens Long Branch. Get you a little whiskey.
All right.
Promo code Tasty.
Tasty.
Did you all see the McConaughey on the Texas basketball bench?
That's what I mentioned it.
Yeah.
That's why I mentioned it.
Sorry, I was getting something set up for one of our segments later, so it was kind of in and out. My segment, I'm coming almost full circle here. So, back in one of the first weeks of the show, I mentioned that Sam's Club was my non-sponsor. I am going to continue down the line of, I guess you call it warehouse stores, and I'm going to go with Costco.
Okay, big box. Yeah, big box warehouse stores.
Costco, more specifically, their hot dog combo.
Oh yes, that's right.
$1.50. This is the same price they've had on this since the 1980s or whenever they first started it. They are literally losing money on these combos now. But those hot dogs are so damn tasty. Excuse my language, but it's worth it. Those are really good hot dogs. And they have all the fixing. They've got onion, they've got regular mustard, deli mustard, ketchup, relish, sauerkraut, and I'm sure something else in there. Those are really, really tasty. And their pizza is okay. Sam's has better pizza. But definitely Costco is the better hot dog. So, but everything else, like in Sam's, is the same. They've got air conditioning. They have a lot of couches that you can sit on. So in that regard, it's basically the same. They have different products, but definitely those hot dogs.
You know what I love at Costco? The froyo.
They changed the froyo, though.
What they changed to?
They used to have the chocolate vanilla mix.
Yeah, now they have the berry one, right?
Well, they have acai berry now.
Okay. Yeah, the acai berry one. Okay. But I just get the straight vanilla. But they got rid of the chocolate?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. But the
vanilla is
vanilla.
good, though.
Okay, yeah. No, it's great, and it's like a massive amount for like 340 calories. I mean,
right.
Geez, I don't know what they put in it, but it's probably not good for me. But still, it's good to eat. That's for sure.
And they have strawberry sauce that you can put on it too. That makes it also really.
I've never done that. Holy crap! I've never done that.
You know what we have to do this weekend? We're gonna have to go to Costco and get some vanilla froyo with strawberry.
I just got some soft serve from Burger King. That was actually pretty good too.
Feel free to tag along with us, Charles. I'm not sure if there's a Costco in between us and you.
I'm sure there are.
Probably in West Palm. I'll find it.
There's definitely a Costco in Boca, that's for sure.
That'll be our weekend adventure.
No, we're not going to go to a
Sports Goofs
basketball
go shopping.
So, definitely Costco, specifically the Costco hot dog combo, highly recommended. And even if you don't have a membership, my guess is you can probably find a way to sneak yourself in so you can get one. I'm sure they would be okay with you spending the money. So, promo code is deliciousness.
Deliciousness. Okay. Alrighty. So, Costco, Aldi's, and
Long Branch.
Wild Turkey.
Delicious.
While we're kind of in a fun mode, as it will, I want to just briefly go back, quick segment, the Fulmer Cup, if I may.
Yes. Let's go. There it is. It is on screen.
There is not a lot to discuss this week, unfortunately. This has been a very slow week.
So everybody's been a good boy.
Everyone has been a good boy. Hopefully is not a good word because you never want people to commit crime.
Hopefully someone out there commits some sort of murder.
But so far, no changes. I want to make a disclaimer. This is not the... I like that graphic. Very nice. This is not the official podcast. There is no official podcast for the Fulmer Cup. This is not that either, obviously. But this is me as a Fulmer Cup moderator and just a Fulmer Cup fan, bringing you your weekly update of the criminal activity that takes place in Division I college football during the off season, which, to be specific, is from the second that the national championship game ends to the second that the kicker kicks the ball for the Week 0 matchup between Hawaii and Arizona on August 24th. So about a 6 or 7 month period, I suck at math, where it is a free-for-all where you and your team can earn points. So, again, not a lot to disclose this week, which is unfortunate, but...
So, who's in the lead right now?
Alabama.
Okay.
They're the only team that has scored points because they had the one player with public intoxication.
All right, so they're going to be... So far, they are the champions of the offseason.
They just have 6 months or so to go.
Okay.
Oh, and for the record, I looked it up. I asked somebody. I'll have to look deeper into it. But the record for most points in a single incident.
Okay.
It's a combination of different crimes. Obviously, it's not just one crime, but it's the combination of different crimes that one player committed. The record is 55 points. Which, if you look at the...
No, that's not 55 different crimes, right?
No. It's 55 points accumulated from the various crimes he committed.
Okay.
Next week, I'll leave you in suspense, I suppose. I'll tell you who it was and what they did. Because that blows away any record that any player has ever gotten. Which, considering that most of the crimes are below 10 points... I think there are only 2 crimes that are in the double digits, which is murder and cannibalism.
Okay.
So to rack up 55 points is really saying something.
Okay, so that's our Fulmer Cup update for this week. All right, guys. This is actually a topic that Andrew thought up about. We're about 2 days away from the NHL All-Star break. At least Alabama will win the national title this season, as BU just said. But I want to talk a little bit about the NHL before we get into the All-Star break. And Sue, we shall do that. And I think what we're going to talk about is the fact that the New York Islanders have sat atop the Metro Division now. Very surprising given how they started off the season. They were actually pretty mired in terribleness with the Florida Panthers and have been able to string things together. And I'm actually very surprised. Barry Trotz, the reigning Stanley Cup champion coach, he's no longer with the Washington Capitals, but he is the guy who helped lead them to the Stanley Cup last season, is working his magic out in Long Island, in Brooklyn, for now. And Lou Lamoriello, another big pickup for the Islanders. For all of you who don't know, Lou Lamoriello is the architect of the New Jersey Devils dynasty with Martin Brodeur, Niedermeyer, all those guys, all those wonderful human beings that won 3 Stanley Cups out in New Jersey. And so he's working his magic out in New York. Now, previously, Lou Lamoriello was in Toronto helping the Maple Leafs. I almost said the Blue Jays, but the Maple Leafs turn their stuff around. And lo and behold, the funny thing was we got to the point where the New York Islanders finally sat alone atop the Metro Division, and they had 60 points. And for those of you who don't know, they lost one of their biggest stars in John Tavares to the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Everyone and their mother thought they were done. That was it.
Yeah, everybody was expecting them to be just awful. They'll probably tank, lose for Hughes, and also Probably be mired with maybe like the Ottawa Senators or something like that for the worst team in the league. However, even though there's no really awful teams right now in the NHL, but we'll get there. We'll get there. I'm sure after the trading deadline, we'll start to see some good old-fashioned tanking. But John Tavares kind of strung them along for that entire end of last season, and it looked like, okay, maybe he's going to sign with them. Maybe if they offer him enough money, he'll stick with them. He's from the Toronto area. He obviously would love to play for his hometown team, but he was drafted by the Islanders and this and that. He's in New York. Eventually, Tavares signs with the Maple Leafs, and the Maple Leafs are awesome this season. In no small part to John Tavares, and of course they have Austin Matthews and Anderson in goal, but they have the same amount of points as the Islanders now. So now we've got, I actually want to show this on screen. Andrew, you kind of give your thoughts a little bit about the Islanders while I look for this.
Honestly, it's a surprise. I mean, people were expecting Tampa Bay to do well this season, and so far they are. They're in the running for the President's Trophy, which is the number one team overall in terms of point earnage across both conferences. But the Islanders are right behind them. No one would have expected that.
Right.
So much so that ESPN, NHL, you name it, their official social media accounts
You'll see it on screen. I'm going to leave it up for a little bit. But keep going. The official social media
are
account.
basically saying, well, who would have imagined this coming? Nobody expected it
I think
coming.
Charles just saw it. Okay, so this is the I don't know if you guys have followed this account on Twitter, but this is the New York Islanders. It's not official, but the Isles white SUV. Because as you know, well, as some of you may not know, they play at the Barclays Center sharing with the Brooklyn Nets. That building is not configured for hockey. It's more for basketball. So thus, the ice surface is way too big for it. In the corner of the arena next to the ice, there's like this blank space where there's nothing there, and so they parked an SUV there. It's sponsored by Honda, I think, and so somebody created an account for that SUV, and it says right there on screen, crazy stat: Mariano is first person to unanimously walk on the moon in the postseason. That's great. Okay, I was looking for, man, this must be a Yankees fan, whoever runs this, because there's more about Mariano than the Islanders. But I was looking for the tweet that they put out about John Tavares. Gosh. But keep going, Andrew.
Honestly, I'm pleasantly surprised. I'm excited to see it because tanking is no fun. I know for some teams it's a necessary evil. I know the Philadelphia 76ers had the process over in the NBA, but it's good to see that they're taking the loss of Tavares. Thank you. Tavares in stride, and not only that, they are saying, you know what? Darn it, we're going to have the best possible season we have. We brought in the reigning Stanley Cup winning coach, so obviously he did something right. And I think this honestly shows that, I know that it was Barry Trotz, right? Was the coach?
What?
Barry Trotz.
He's the coach of the Islanders right now. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure some people thought, oh, Barry Trotz, he's a good coach, but part of it was his circumstance being surrounded by Braden Holtby, Alex Ovechkin, so they weren't 100% sure how good he truly was. This shows Trotz is a very, very good coach because he took a team that was down and out from losing their star player, the player that they drafted and brought up for all these years, losing him and he's made them even more successful than they were last year, which is amazing. I mean, I know I keep bringing up urinating tree, but they've won, one playoff series, and that's debatable.
Yeah.
Mr. Panthers
there
fan.
it is. I found it.
Mr. Panthers fan here. Well, I'll get to this.
Okay, so the white SUV tweeted this out once they made it into first place in the Metro Division. What's it feel like to be in first? 91 Tavares. Oops, sorry, tagged wrong account. Because if you look at the standings in the NHL, the Maple Leafs are having a fantastic season, 60 points, but they are so far away from the Tampa Bay Lightning that it's ridiculous. So it's a bit of shade that the white SUV has thrown to Jonathan Tavares. Finally, because he leaves for the Maple Leafs. They're not even a first place team, and his old team is a first place team now. And
well, in their defense, wait, the Maple Leafs, they're in the Metro Division as well?
No, they're in the Atlantic.
That's what I thought. In fairness, the Atlantic is a very tough division. I mean, you've got the Lightning.
Well, the Eastern Conference in the NHL right now is really tough. I mean, right. I think it's more... I don't know if it's akin to the Western Conference in the NBA, but it's definitely the stronger of the two conferences, at least this season right now, and I guess last season too.
Right.
Even though, which may or may not explain the Knights' run through the Western Conference, but the Knights are still great this season. Anyways,
absolutely.
But still, that's a bit of a tangent. But still, the Eastern Conference is really good this season, and you have some really good. There's a bit of a drop off between. After the Sabres, because I think the Penguins hold the second wild card spot and final spot, and then it's the Sabres, and then after that you got kind of the rest of the Eastern Conference. I could actually look that up real quick, but still, it's a testament to Barry Trotz's coaching. He's been the difference maker for the Islanders. I think him and Lou Lamoriello. He could have easily. I mean, the Islanders could have easily walked into the situation. I mean, they could have easily just like relegated themselves to, okay, we lost Tavares, we're gonna have to tank to get our next superstar, which could have easily been the case. But they go out and get Barry Trotz and Lou Lamoriello into that organization, and it kind of brought some sort of competitiveness to them and say, hey, look, we're not just gonna be a doormat this season. And I know I know that we don't have a superstar here, but it's the NHL. You can kind of work around that sort of thing if you can create an elite defense or something like that, even though the league is more higher scoring than ever. But so kudos to the Islanders for getting it together. I think the first month, kind of like what the NBA, maybe the opposite of the Memphis Grizzlies. The Islanders needed a month to kind of figure it out, and boom, here they are. Whereas the Grizzlies needed a month for everybody else to figure them out. Alrighty. So kudos on the Islanders. Even though Trocheck was still tripped, you guys are doing a good job out there.
And that's a reference to the
Florida Panthers.
The Florida Panthers
2016, first round. Yep.
He for those obviously
that was basically the Saints Rams pass interference type of thing where it was so blatant it was not called.
For the record,
and we lost the game in the series because of that.
For the record, Francisco just had the 1,000-yard stare going right now, so yeah, he's still not.
What could have been? What could have been? What could have been? But hey, look at the Panthers. They've won 3 games in a row and look like they're about to do what they did last season, which is a mad dash with 34 games left, winning 25 of their last 34 games and still missing the playoffs by a point. That'll be fun. You guys, so I won't exactly make my Panthers a terrible segment just yet. All right, guys.
It's coming.
Yeah, it's coming. That was my hockey talk, and that was Charles' one contribution to the hockey talk. Sorry, dude.
It's growing week by week. week by week.
He's learning little more, little by little about hockey. He's like,
I now know that they give a trophy for first place.
More about the NBA,
there's an Islanders team in New York. I see.
That I know. but now I'm educated on the President's Cup, President's Trophy. So we did it, you guys. We did it.
The President's Trophy is essentially just a.
It means absolutely nothing.
It's a bad omen for most teams, actually.
The Capitals would win that routinely, or at least come very close to it, and they just kept blowing every single chance they had.
Yeah, they couldn't even make it to the Eastern Conference Finals until last season. Actually,
Right.
last season was the first time they broke through.
Yeah.
Since '98 when they last went to the finals.
Yeah,
so it's the equivalent of
they just got decimated by the Red Wings.
Of the.
God. So it's equivalent of like the NBA Coach of the Year, where you win and you get fired for the most part.
Essentially. And actually, the NHL is kind of the same thing. The Jack Adams Award winner, the
head coach,
the best head coach of the season, they usually don't last long after winning it. So it's not exactly Joe Girardi getting fired by the Marlins, but it's pretty close. As soon as he wins Manager of the Year, but it's pretty close. Pretty darn close. All right, guys. So we have an hour and a half into this. We talked our hockey talk. You know what? Let's have a little fun. Let's go to the players we remember to forget.
Ooh, pick me. I want to start.
Yeah, because you actually have one this week.
Well, I had one last week with Pedro Guerrero.
Oh, that's true.
But this one I'm really excited about because I don't know, it just came out of nowhere for me, but I'm excited that I found it or remembered it. So way back when, I think this was in 1992, there was a player by the name of Chris Moore who played for Western Washington University. The team is now since defunct. I sent you a link for the video, and I'll let that play because that was just an awesome play.
The greatest football catch ever?
Mm-hmm. I'll let that run real quick.
Okay. Chris Moore, Western Washington University. So I'm assuming the university exists, but the football program does not.
Not anymore.
What is that? Holy crap, really? I'm watching the play. Sorry. I was showing some guy named Reggie Brooks. Touchdown run, but where's... There it is. Let me skip ahead. Chris Moore. Okay, so... catch... Wow. Wow. That is incredible. It bounces off of his arms. It hits his left leg, goes in between his butt cheeks, and then he kind of does like an NBA type of move between his legs and holds onto the ball. Man, if that was in the NFL, they'd probably say he didn't have control of it. I'll tell you that much.
So, what happened to him since then? So he was a sophomore when that happened. This was in, I believe it was 1992. I could be wrong, though. It was the 1992 College Play of the Year for the...
Yeah, I just saw it.
It was the first ESPYs ever.
Oh.
I'm telling you how... It just gives you an idea of how old this play was. So since then, he is now a product manager for T-Mobile. He's been in the telecommunications business for a decade. He is married with 2 young children who lives in North Bend, which is, I'm assuming, in Washington. He is now 37, and apparently all the jobs he's gotten, everyone brings that up because, well, why wouldn't they? Because that is just an amazing catch, and I think it is one of, if not the best college football catches ever.
Yeah.
Because that takes some hand, foot, butt, thigh, hand coordination to get that sort of a catch, because just dang.
Wow.
So not a lot to discuss there. He's really kept quiet since then. That was kind of his big moment.
That's his claim to fame.
But I just figured I'd bring that up because that is an amazing catch that I had forgotten to remember, but now I remembered to remember because I had forgotten it.
Okay. That's awesome. That is an awesome. I've never seen that.
I'm surprised. Well, I watch college football, so
yeah,
I'm not that surprised.
All right, so my guy is Eddie Jones.
Ooh.
Yeah, Charles perked up a little bit.
I have no idea who that is. Sorry, folks.
Okay, well, Eddie Jones is a former Los Angeles Lakers, Charlotte Hornets, Miami Heat player. He's actually from down here. He's from Pompano Beach, Florida. I think he makes his home here still. He was drafted in 1994 in the first round for the 10th overall pick from Temple. So Manny Diaz did not. The University of Miami could not steal him away. Had nothing to do with that. But he played. He was a shooting guard, and then he was also a small forward.
So he's kind of a jack of all trades.
Well, the reason that he became a small forward was because in the 2003-04 season, he had to move away from being a shooting guard because of the rise of a budding young star named Dwayne Wade. So
I wonder whatever happened to that guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. We should do a player we should remember to forget for him.
Yeah.
Actually, maybe sometime towards the end of the season. Just for kicks. So the one thing I actually wanted to well, he appeared in a Taco Bell commercial with Shaquille O'Neal. Okay. The commercial focuses on Shaq suffering from taco neck syndrome.
Taco neck syndrome.
Yes. So I actually wanted to play it.
I guess he no quiero Taco Bell.
Yeah, this must have been before the Taco Bell Chihuahua campaign. So let's go to good old YouTube. There it is, people.
Roll that beautiful taco footage.
Okay, so let's put this on blast.
It now appears that Shaq is suffering from a neck injury.
Of course we're concerned. That's one valuable neck. It's not natural.
It's a conspiracy, man.
Shaq is suffering from taco neck syndrome, TNS. It's caused by his craving for delicious Taco Bell tacos. And he's getting worse with every neck-bending bite. But now there's a big breakthrough therapy. The new big beef burrito from Taco Bell. Just 99 cents
99
with double the
cents?
beef. It is the perfect antidote for taco neck.
Inflation. All right, so there's taco neck syndrome, everybody. So just watch out when you're eating delicious Taco Bell. That was actually one of our non-sponsors one week.
Yeah.
So just be careful. You might have taco neck syndrome if you eat too much Taco Bell. And so that's my Eddie Jones. Because I found that commercial and I just thought that was funny. So that's why I remember Eddie Jones. Even though he's actually he had a really good career. So it's not like he was a terrible player. It's just he should be remembered for that commercial.
Yes.
For appearing one split second in that commercial.
He
and
missed
apparently
out
he was on
on
the cover of a basketball game.
Huh?
Yeah.
Apparently he was on the cover of a basketball game. I saw it in passing.
Yeah, he was.
Well,
Probably one of those several basketball games for the N64, the PlayStation, or the Sega Saturn. In that weird time of like 40 different NBA, NHL, NFL, baseball properties releasing games every season. Which was actually the good old days when there was competition and we didn't have crappy Electronic Arts, EA, releasing microtransaction BS every single year. As well as 2K, Take-Two with the NBA 2K series, which is all just microtransaction BS as well. This turned into a microtransactions rant a little bit, but it's it's the reason I don't even buy regular sports games anymore, because it's all just loot box microtransaction crap.
I'm into that.
Yeah.
So they're not your sponsors, huh, for the week?
No, they won't be my non-sponsors until maybe if Nintendo ever wanted to release their own baseball or basketball or or NHL game, because I think EA still has exclusive rights to the NFL. So, yeah. That kind of went on a tangent there, but you have anybody, Charles, that you want us to remember?
I do. And keeping up with the football season, keeping up with the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs kind of broke my heart, I'm going to bring in the quarterback that I remember very well for the Kansas City Chiefs. The player so bad that we forget, or players we got to remember, Brody Coyle. So, I know. Brody Coyle. This is the education right here, boys. Per Wikipedia. John Brody Coyle is an American football quarterback. He was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs in the third round of the 2006 draft. He played college for the University of Alabama from 2002 to 2005. The reason why Brody Coyle pops into me is because I don't believe he won a single game in any of his starts. And he had some time. He was a Herm Edwards guy. Herm Edwards is loyal. He was described to be like the future. And his play was just so lackluster, so bad. And that was a Chiefs team that had some weapons. They had Larry Johnson back in there. They had a few other guys there. But his bad play gave way, and his injuries gave way to Damian Heward and Tyler Thigpen. You guys remember Tyler Thigpen.
I do remember him.
To come in. But he was so bad, it's what caused the Matt Castle phenomenon once Brady went down that 1 year. The injury. And then what happened was basically they traded for Castle. Brody was there for like 1 week. He had a average season, then he was released, and then he just kind of retired after 2012. So, not a single thing. So I'm just looking at a couple of stats just to give you an idea. It was bad, you guys. It was bad. Like 2006, he only had 2 interceptions, no touchdowns. He briefly appeared. 2007 was more of a starter basis. He had 6 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. Didn't really do anything in 2008. 2009, he only had 2 touchdowns in relief appearance, and 2010 it was just 1 interception. Where he is now, according to the Wikipedia personal life, is that he volunteers at Big Oak Ranch, a Christian home and school founded by his father for children from troubled and abusive situations. For good on him. But he popped in because I was watching the weekend games, like, man, whatever happened to Brody Coyle, and this is where he's at now.
Yeah. So he was okay. Hold on. So Kansas City. Wow, he didn't. So QB. He played 18 games in his career. Started 10 of them. 10-0.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, you said he played in 12 games? Or?
He played in 18 games, but he started 10.
Oh.
And he went 10-0 in those 10 starts. He has a 56.7 completion percentage for 1,669 yards. Nice. 8 touchdowns. So it's a touchdown percentage of 2.5. Dear Lord. His longest one was a 50-yarder in 2009. And, wow. His QB rating... it's too bad they don't have... But he had a .8 QB rating his rookie season for the 2 games that he did play. And then, I guess, for the one... the season he started the most games, which was in 2007, he had a QB rating of 36.1. So, it could be worse for Dolphins fans with regards to Ryan Tannehill. We could have had that for a few seasons. Yeah. Okay, so that's some good perspective there, and it's also good perspective for the Chiefs fans saying, look how far you've come. Wow.
Growth. That's what it's all about. I don't trust Herm Edwards and trust in Andy Reid, except it's going to be the second round of playoffs, and you're
Isn't Herm Edwards? Where is he now? He's coaching
Arizona
State.
Right?
Arizona
State.
I believe.
Okay, how are they doing? I don't even know.
I think they had an average season. Yeah.
I think they had a 7.
We're going down the rabbit hole. Hold on.
Checking.
Let's check.
I know they made it to a bowl game. They played Fresno State and lost.
They went 7-6.
Yeah, that's what I thought. 7-6. So they
went 5-4 in conference play, so that's saying something.
5-4 in conference play, even though the is it the Pac-12 or Pac-16? What's
Pac-12?
Okay, now
Pac-12.
Even though they're not really...
They're going to be Pac-16 eventually, I'm sure.
All these weird names that don't make sense for these conferences now.
Well, that one actually makes sense because they do have 12 players.
Yeah,
12 teams.
Yeah, but some of them don't have the same amount, and nobody knows how to count, or at least know how to use Adobe Illustrator and change the number. I mean, it's pretty simple, guys. Just change the number. They're all firm for Herm. I love it. Firm for Herm. That's my favorite. That's the best part of the episode. The bus season was rather mediocre. That's great. If he ever ran for politics, that should be his slogan. Firm. Woo! That's great. Thank you, BU. Thank you very much. Okay, so those are the players we remember to forget. That's funny. I'm very happy with Firm for Herm. Okay. Oh boy. Wow. And their hockey team benefited from the good juju Herm provided. That's true. Yeah, we were talking about that last week about Arizona State hockey and how much having hockey in a southern market or in a southern area is great for college hockey, and it's great for hockey in general. And hopefully we get to see some teams out in California, and I would assume California would be the next logical step for that. But that's more of a tangent type of thing. If I keep going with that, we already discussed it last week. You can watch the episode. I'll probably put a thing up there because YouTube wants us to do crap like that. Fan opinion, guys. Sue, to round out the episode, I wanted to ask you guys the move that your team should have done, but they didn't, and now you believe it was the biggest missed opportunity for them. All right. So I'll give you an example. It's actually the biggest example that I think of, and it's regarding my wonderful and favorite baseball team, the Miami Marlins. Back then, they were called the Florida Marlins. The 2009 season, the last season, the Marlins had a winning record. I think they won, and I'll actually confirm this right now.
They obviously won at least 82 games.
I think they won either 86 or 88 games. 2009 Marlins. So, Florida Marlins Texas 2009, 87 games. So
you kind of split the difference.
Yeah, there you go. 87 games. They finished second in the NL East. I got to see the standings for that season actually. So let me look that up too. But if you guys don't know, 2009 was a pivotal year for the Marlins as a franchise. Mainly because all right, we're back. Technical difficulties. We still have about 12 minutes left in the episode, but 2009 was a missed opportunity for the Marlins because of the fact that they were trying to get that funding for the stadium. Okay, 2009 was a pivotal year. Jeffrey Loria and his little minion, David Sampson, needed to show Miami-Dade County that they were poor. They couldn't afford to fully finance a baseball stadium, and if they didn't, they would move the Florida Marlins at that time to some place like San Antonio, which was the city that they were courting at the time.
You would actually probably, in hindsight, be very happy with that move, because or El Paso.
No. Well, if that had happened, El Paso would be fine. If it was, if they moved the franchise to El Paso, I'd be just like the Raiders fans in LA. Just be cheering on those El Paso Marlins. Nowhere near an ocean, but I would. They shouldn't even change the name if they ever did that. Just be the El Paso Marlins. But still, the Marlins had 87 wins that season. Last time we won, we had a winning record, and Jeffrey Loria trading deadline very pivotal. 2003, they traded for Ugueth Urbina and then I think the waiver deadline they traded for Jeff Conine. Massive moves. The Marlins got a closer. They got a seasoned veteran who had been through the playoffs before, and they win the World Series. 2009, they had Josh Johnson, who at the time was awesome. Great young pitcher.
Went to my sister's alma mater.
James he's from school. Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's from
James
Oklahoma.
High School.
Yeah, there you go, dude. From Oklahoma, looked like that team's version of Josh Beckett. Okay, Hanley Ramirez back then wasn't a joke. Back then had less weave in his hair, but I think he was that season. I think he was the NL batting champion, and he won the Silver Slugger, and he was the Rookie of the Year in 2006. So the Marlins. So 2009 MLB standings. All right, so Charles' Yankees obviously won the World Series that season. So he remembers that year very fondly. The Marlins would have obviously, had they traded for some help that season, some starting pitching or something like that to put them over the top, I believe the Marlins could have made the playoffs that season. So the wild card for that season were the Colorado Rockies at 92 wins. So only 5 wins away. The Marlins, had they gotten some help, maybe would have been able to make that difference. Or maybe have challenged the Phillies for the NL East. So that was the biggest missed opportunity. I think that team was prime and ready. Freddie Gonzalez was not a terrible manager that season. And it's the biggest missed opportunity for me. They would have beaten the Yankees in the World Series in 2009, and we'd be sitting here, and Derek Jeter wouldn't be trying to save the franchise now, which is kind of funny now. It's all come full circle.
And who knows? Maybe they would have still been the Florida Marlins,
or they would have been the San Antonio Marlins. Okay, so that's my biggest missed opportunity. 2009 Florida Marlins baseball season.
Charles?
Alrighty, so, as a Yankee fan, we always kind of swing home. So for me, it's not about missed opportunities of trying to sign a guy. It's missed opportunities I'm using and not looking at hindsight and avoiding signing a guy. So basically, I'm going to invert and say, we should have signed this dude because it would have helped us in the long run. And this is going to be a name that you're familiar with, Francisco. Carl Pavano.
Oh!
Yeah, because what do Yankees do? When we eye you,
I love Carl
and we
Pavano.
likes you. Well, you could love you some Carl Pavano back in 2003.
Yeah,
and
2004, which enticed you guys to sign him.
Exactly. We because that was the Yankee way when big boss was still alive.
Signing Randy Johnson.
Signing away opponents who handed us our hinds, and to keep it PG here, but also just throwing big money to pitchers. So the contract that Pavano had was for 4 years, $39.95 million. This was back in 2005. We had also signed Randy Johnson. He had been coming off a season where he went 18-8 with the Marlins, posting a 3.0 ERA. We were so happy. We were thinking we were finally getting that 1-3 punch in the rotation, and then it kind of went downhill after that. His first season in the Yanks, he went 4-2 with 3.69 ERA, but then he got hurt, and you know what happens when they come back? They get destroyed. He made 17 starts in the entire season. His finishing record was 4-6 with 4.77 ERA. Okay, maybe like a 4-5 starting pitcher numbers, but still, we paid him bigger money at that time. Didn't make a start with the Yankees in 2006. He was on the DL. Then he was in a car accident, breaking his 2 ribs, and he didn't tell anybody until like the 14 days later after the fact. So they banned him. And then he only made 9 starts within the next 2 years of his career. And then, everything was let go. His whole record over 4 seasons was 9-8 with a 5.10 ERA and 26 starts. After that, he had kind of like that career in Toronto, Cleveland, Minnesota, where he was just kind of like the average guy. But think about all the money we spent that year trying to get back into it because we were just in a Game 7 loss against the Marlins not too far out early. We got a little petty, and we paid for our pettiness. So that's a move I wish they didn't make.
You guys lost in Game 6, by the way.
Game 6, sorry. Brain's going off to a different part. But pain, beyond pain, my friends.
Okay. Anything for you, Andrew?
I'll just make mine quick. I'm not used to a team that has to go through such a really big rebuilding in order to get someplace. But I kind of understand how the Sixers and all these tanking teams feel. Although, contrary to what we've been doing, the Rays did really well this year in terms of record. But every time we trade away a really good player that's been with the team for a long time, I feel like a little bit of my heart breaks and it gets chipped away. The biggest moment was when we traded Evan Longoria to the Giants. I mean, all these different trades hurt. Jason Bartlett, Sean Rodriguez, you name it. I think there's nobody left from the 2008 World Series roster at this point. And just seeing them all chipped away, it hurts. So I think kind of as a collective, that would be my answer. But especially the Evan Longoria trade. I know it may help us in the long run, but...
And it didn't help the Giants, that's for sure.
But at least for now, all of them is just very painful. I was hoping that he would have come up through the system as a Ray, played his entire career as a Ray. I mean, I know that we've discussed before that you don't buy jerseys normally for players unless it's a player that's meant a lot to the team. For me, Longoria is that player. I would go out and buy a jersey with his name and number because dude was more than just a player. He kind of symbolized the team, was the heart of the team.
I mean, I don't know what the Giants are. Well, their championship window is shut. It's over. It's done.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 30. Longoria, he's 32. Last season's numbers were, I mean, it's obvious he's on the downswing of his career.
I know, but he is, with very little argument, the best player in Rays history.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the Wade Boggs who came in the last year of his career, got his 3,000th hit. I mean, obviously,
Wade
Wade
much
Boggs
owns the record,
right?
For the Rays.
But I'm talking about in terms of their career with the Rays.
Right.
He is bar none the best player, and like I said, beyond just his play, I know he's on the decline. Although watch him have an astronomical 2019 season. Now that I've said this. But, more than that, it's just what he represented to the team as more or less the captain. He didn't have the C on his jersey, but like Derek Jeter was for the Yankees, he was our captain more or less. So losing that was very painful.
Okay. All right. So we're getting towards the end here, probably the last 3, 4, 5 minutes of our show. And Andrew loves to do this bit right here. As you all know, there's 40 billion college basketball games on, and probably 339 billion of those we don't even know their names or where they're from, those colleges. So we do a little bit of weird college teams' names. Guess that college team name, whatever you call it. So Andrew, what do we got tonight?
Well, I switched it up a little bit, and remember when I said earlier that I was doing some research for a segment later. This is said research. I was speaking with the one and only BU Mr. Canada. I decided to change things up a little bit, and I went with college hockey.
Okay. All right.
Because there weren't a lot of interesting games on tonight for college basketball.
As far as the teams being kind of weird or whatever. Because, like, the Duke Blue Devils are playing tonight as far as the men's are concerned.
Right.
But,
So, starting us off is the University of Massachusetts at Lowell.
Gosh. I've heard... The thing is, all right, so obviously following hockey, I know some of the schools' names as far as the places, okay? Minnesota, Duluth, all those places and stuff like that, but I don't know their names of the nicknames of the teams. So I've heard of Massachusetts Lowell, but I don't know who they are. I don't know what their colors are. Okay.
Well, just going off of memory, and BU can probably confirm or deny this for me. A, Minnesota Duluth is the Bulldogs. And B, Lowell is blue and red. And I hope I got that right, because then I'll make myself look like an idiot on quote-unquote national TV. So it's a 2-word name. One of them is a body of water, and the other is an avian creature, so a flying creature.
So the ducks of some sort. The lake ducks.
More predatory.
Okay.
And less standing water.
Okay. Okay, the river eagles, which doesn't make sense to me.
You got the river correct.
Okay.
River herons?
River
More predatory.
Could you count a heron to be predatory? Kind of.
A very pissed off heron.
Hey man, don't mess with goose or geese.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, the river. Even though, oh gosh, there's a minor league baseball team that I just found out is called the Sod Poodles.
Okay.
I forgot. I think they're out in Texas.
Yeah.
The Amarillo Sod Poodles.
Which I found out is a prairie dog.
Yeah, yeah.
So anyway, to make sure we can go along quicker, UML, as Mr. BU Canada said, is the River Hawks.
The River Hawks. Okay.
And again, they are based out of Lowell, Massachusetts.
Okay.
2 Alaska teams here. First off is the flagship of the Alaska University system.
They used to have an ECHL team called the Aces. They don't have one anymore. But sorry, go ahead.
Alaska Fairbanks.
Okay.
It is an Inuit term.
Oh gosh.
So
the only Inuit that I know is the theme song to the credits theme for Metal Gear Solid, because that was actually an Inuit. So, sorry, but it's an Inuit term. So we would never guess it, would we?
Do you want to even give it a shot, Charles?
I'm just Googling what Inuit means. I'm an educated man, but apparently not that educated.
Inuit is a indigenous tribe from Alaska.
The old term,
the old school,
was Eskimo. Yes, but
yeah. You see, I'm not very PC, so they're Eskimo.
Yeah, we're not Dan Snyder, so
yeah.
So the answer to that one is the Nanuks.
The Nanuks,
which is I couldn't nail it down. It's either polar bear or a polar bear like owner, wrangler, master, something like that.
Nanuks, kind of close to Canucks.
That's true.
Vancouver, I don't know.
And then next is Alaska Anchorage.
Alaska Anchorage.
And I'll save the other. I have 3 other teams lined up, but I know we're running low on time, so I'll just end it with Alaska Anchorage.
The Anchors.
That would be cool. It is a fictional creature, I presume. It is a canine, but it's a combination word. It's a large body of water and a canine, a wild canine, but it's all one word.
Huh.
The Seawolves?
Correct.
Oh, okay.
Right off the bat, Mr. Reporta. Yes.
What the hell is a sea wolf?
It is, I'm assuming, a fictional creature, or it could just be a wolf that is in sea.
I mean, aren't seals, like, some seals considered like sea dogs or something?
Something like that. I know in doggo lingo, seals are sea puppers.
Okay.
Or sea doggos.
Because, I mean, I think there's an either an OHL or a QMJHL team called the Sea Dog, the frickin' St. John's Sea Dogs, where Jonathan Huberdeau used to play, but and they have kind of like a sea lion seal or a sea lion. It feels like an Arrested Development episode.